Every summer for as long as I can remember, my family and I watch a lot of movies. After a hot day, it's nice to relax and just get enveloped in a good story. We usually go through a lot of classics like Summer Rental, Weekend at Bernie's, Meatballs, and of course, Jaws. If you visited, you'd hear this.
I'm the program director, Jerry Aldini.
Whiny.
A what?
Are these your shorts? Tut, 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 tut.
Wookie cookie cookie.
Hooper! Squeeze dick. Oh, really? Beach Lane.
With my family and I reciting an endless list of movie quotes. As told to me in the past, you're some movie-loving fools. A statement I can't deny in the slightest, but with a movie like this, I would be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't like it. Jaws was directed by young Steven Spielberg and released in 1975, based on the Peter Benchley novel released a year prior. It is widely considered the first summer blockbuster, followed by Star Wars 2 years later. My 11-year-old dad and mom both saw it in theaters and loved it. They each have memories of kids refusing to swim in the ocean after seeing the movie. The huge success did not come easy though, due to many delays and malfunctions while shooting. Principal photography was scheduled to take about 55 days but ended up reaching 159. The $4 million budget was quickly spent, totaling to $9 million by the end. The mechanical sharks had trouble functioning correctly in the Atlantic Ocean, causing the majority of the delay. Spielberg insisted on filming in the ocean rather than a backlot pool or lake to capture the power and correct look of the sea. Though visually striking, it nearly sank the picture. The movie opens with the three titular actors' names placed upon a black background. This arrangement was used to not make it overly obvious who is the headliner. Robert Shaw's name is on top, but Roy Scheider's name is on the left. Both ways, Richard Dreyfuss is last since he had the least experience. We hear the beginnings of John Williams' famous score as the bass strikes the two ominous notes. This leads to the more up-tempo section as the horn trills, usher in a title card. Sorry. We see teens sitting around a beach fire at night doing some very teenager things, playing music, passing a joint, and getting horny. Two get up and decide to go swimming. The guy stumbles trying to catch up to the already stripping Chrissy Watkins, who plans on taking a dip. As she enters the water, he falls and passes out on the sand, leading to one of the most famous opening scenes in cinematic history. We see a lone swimmer in the dark ocean, isolated. Except for when the camera cuts to an underwater shot, putting the audience in the POV of the shark. The vulnerability of that effect will be used throughout the film, playing into the fear of how unknown the open water can be. The score holds a shrill note as she's bobbed under the water repeatedly. Then it ramps up as she's thrust around, utilizing the music to the fullest extent. The thrashing back and forth is intercut with the knocked out solitude on the shore as no help is within reach. The violent yanking was accomplished as actress Susan Backlany was tied around the waist by two ropes. They were pulled, dragging her side to side. Some of her screams had to be overdubbed in post-production, and to get the gurgling sound of struggling in the water, Spielberg poured water down her throat as she screamed. Richard Dreyfuss, who later plays Hooper, bluntly recalled it as waterboarding.
Which is now known as waterboarding. So Stephen is actually guilty of a war crime and...
Despite that, she is pulled into the abyss. Silence. The music stops, and all we hear is the crashing tides. We open the next morning with the chief of police of Amity Island, Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider. He's accompanied by his wife Ellen, Lorraine Gary, and a cute puppy who's breaking the fourth wall. After a lesson in the New York state of mind,
They're in the yard, not too far from the car.
He gets a call about the missing Chrissy. He heads to investigate while driving an awesome Chevy Blazer. Deputy Hendricks, Jeffrey Kramer, finds something on the beach. A nice perspective shot is shown as Hendricks is shocked and closer to the frame. Brody and the fellow from last night stand frozen slightly farther away as they discover the remains. We ease into this film's violence, so all we see is a hand perched from the shore and covered in crabs. The sea animal, not the... This ends as Brody stares into the ocean, amazed by the destruction. The first victim in the story. In the station, the famous typewriter shot spells out the cause of death as shark attack. If you notice, the date says July 1st, which checks out considering the film takes place right before the 4th of July, though keep this in mind. Brody is swarmed by local problems in the gorgeous Martha's Vineyard, which was the location for the fictional Amity Island. Hendricks pulls up in the fresh whip to tell Brody there are Boy Scouts swimming in the bay. Brody orders Hendricks back to the station to make beach closed signs.
Let Polly do the printing.
He instructs his receptionist Polly to do the printing, but I really think Hendricks probably could...
Let Polly do the printing.
Alright, fine chief, whatever you say. The mayor runs into Hendricks and is wearing one of the dopest jackets I have seen. Hendricks proceeds to tell the mayor about the recent shark attack, and the sound is masked as they are walking in the literal middle of a parade. Like, get out of the way, guys. This choice is very creative in keeping the limit of knowledge about the attacks. The mayor catches up to Brody boarding a small ferry, going to tell the Boy Scouts to get out of the water. Brody's surrounded by the mayor's goons, advising him he has no right to shut the beach down. One of whom, Meadows, is played by Carl Gottlieb, who is the co-writer of the movie along with Benchley. He was brought to add some humor and help make the film more complete. With Spielberg, they shared a log cabin located on the island throughout the shoot. After a day of filming, they would often retreat and write most of the next day's script that night. The mayor is trying to explain to Brody that in a summer town, the absence of those summer dollars could lead to a very bad time. He explains the gut reaction the public has to the word shark in a wonderfully acted scene.
You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
I forgot to mention, this whole part is a one take. Like, how cool is that? And look at that jacket. I mean, seriously, I love this movie. At the beach, we see Alex Kintner begging his mom to let him swim for a little longer because he isn't even that pruny. I don't know, he looks good to me. Get out there, dude, have some summer fun. The immersion is perfect, with a dog playing fetch, some swimming, some tanning, a classical radio station being played, and someone else switching from a baseball broadcast to a rock station. It really feels like a believable beach. Observant Brody catches some rays in his chair. Maybe the attack was just a boating accident. He stares at the ocean with masterful cuts masked by walking people. Wait, but what is that? Oh, never mind. It was just some jealous old dude. There's an excellent diopter shot of the guy talking in the ocean in the back. This means that the foreground closer to the camera is in focus as well as the background farther away. Here, it is used to show that Brody is still being approached about minute problems, but his real attention is out in the water. The old dude with my name comes up and is wearing a pretty neat swimming cap.
Some bad hat, Harry.
Never mind. As Chief Brody unwinds, some kids, including his older son Michael, go out in the ocean and bring a football. Oh look, Alex has his raft out too. That looks like a ton of fun. His younger son Sean is holding down the fort by making sandcastles and singing his favorite song. That guy in the background lost his dog Pippet, the one who was fetching the stick. You should try one of those dog whistles, that usually works pretty well. Wait, there's the stick, so Pippet is probably close. Anyway, I remember one time I stood on a raft and tried to throw a football, and right before... Oh my god. Alex, I am so sorry, you were definitely way too pruny. The famous dolly zoom is used on Brody, showing his unexpected shock. This is also called the vertigo zoom because it was first famously used in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. The effect is done by having a camera pulled back and zoomed in on a target. As you push the camera in, you zoom out, so the scale stays the same, but the perspective gives an uneasy, nightmarish quality. Beachgoers get all the kids out of the water, except for Alex. Hold the phone. If Alex got eaten, and that stick was floating there without the dog... Okay, I take it back. Jaws might be one of the worst movies ever. But in all seriousness, this is one of the most effective cinema techniques. In horror, you kill off someone innocent or central to the plot to heighten the suspense. Now the audience doesn't feel that anyone is safe, making for a more engaging experience for the rest of the runtime. It is tricky though, because it can be seen as insensitive or a poor writing choice, so taste is key. We see the tragic realization as every child has returned to their parents, but Mrs. Kintner is left calling out for her son. The bloody and torn raft is shown as we can only imagine her reaction when she fully comprehends. Next we see a $3,000 bounty posted for the shark that killed Alex. In today's terms, that would be roughly $16,000. Remember when we saw that Chrissy was killed on July 1st, according to the typewriter report? Now, on the bounty sign, it says that Alex Kintner was killed on Sunday, June 29th. Being that he was the second victim, was that a production mistake? Or was it a reference to the sinking date of the USS Indianapolis, later mentioned in the film? Regardless, the town is very concerned about the state of the beach for the rest of the summer. Brody tries to outline all the precautionary measures he's taking to keep everybody safe, but ultimately has to tell them that he's closing the beaches. After the eruption of outrage by that decision, the mayor assures only for 24 hours.
Only 24 hours.
Brody did not agree to this, and it is wild that everyone is so concerned over the summer money rather than human life. Well, and dog life. R.I.P. Pippet. Now we get one of the most famous character introductions, with Quint dragging his nails down a chalkboard. Also, that drawing of the shark was not there before. Did he draw that? Quint has some of the best dialogue ever, and the performance by Robert Shaw is legendary. He was the star power in this picture and was also notably in From Russia with Love. Back then, he was very blonde, as well as one of the only serious threats to Bond throughout that filmography. His speech really shows his experience in hunting sharks. He's a fisherman's lingo, calling them birds, and saying he'll do it for $10,000 rather than the aforementioned $3,000. He doesn't take the shark's danger for granted, setting him apart from the other hunters. At the Brody home, Chief Keef is doing his research when Ellen interrupts him with a tempting proposition.
Want to get drunk and fool around?
Michael is sitting in his boat when Brody yells at him to get out. Ellen thinks he's being too rough on him, especially after seeing Alex get eaten. She has a change of heart though after consulting one of the books Brody was reading.
Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
That night, 2 local fishermen plan to catch the shark and claim the bounty by using a big roast as bait. Seems risky using all that meat at once though.
Don't worry about it. $3,000 buys an awful lot of roast.
Good point. Chief Brody is back to reading and finds some disturbing pictures of real shark attack survivors. This is a great way to keep the reality of a threat while showing brutality and educating the audience. With this, it is a blessing in disguise that the mechanical sharks malfunction so much in the water. Rather than the initial plan of showing everything the shark does, there is a much scarier technique of letting imaginations run wild. There are objects or sounds that symbolize the shark for most of the movie, not just the animatronic itself. The dock is suddenly broken off, and as one of the fishermen, Charlie, swims back to the other, the floating piece turns around. The definition of an "ah shit" moment.
Here we go again.
As the score builds, he's struggling, trying to find his footing, and ominously, the danger slowly creeps behind him. Then finally, relief, as the debris runs ashore.
We go home now.
The next scene is great because we open on an actual native of Martha's Vineyard who just seems so happy to be there. Hendrix is feeling Brody in on the story of the two fishermen, the local story spreading like wildfire. The boys in blue notice how crowded the pier is as people from off island are coming to claim the bounty. We get to meet Hooper from the Oceanographic Institute, welcomed by a camo-clad gentleman named Ben Gardner.
Hello. Hello, Beck.
This actor was another island native and ad-libbed most of his lines. His perfectly unique sayings heard off camera ended up composing a lot of Quint's dialogue. Notably, the town hall scene where he says catching a shark is not like going down the pond and chasing bluegills or Tommy Gots. Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, tries to flag down Brody, but the surge of activity puts this on hold. Brody enlists Hooper to get a group to not overcrowd a boat as he deals with someone carrying dynamite. In one of my favorite scenes, Brody is on the phone desperately asking for any other possible help. He tries to get Hendrix's attention by throwing stuff at the window. In response, Hendrix gives a big wave and makes me crack up every time. Chief steals a cigarette and gets a proper introduction to Hooper.
Matt Hooper, I'm from the Oceanographic Institute.
I'm Brody.
Oh, I'm very glad to meet you.
Yeah, I'm glad to meet you.
When Dreyfuss went in for the role, he already had the beard and the rimless glasses and was seen as perfect immediately, though he wasn't the first choice. We get some more classic Ben Gardner as a group of hunters set off.
They'll wish their fathers had never met their mothers when they start taking their bottoms out and slamming into them rocks, boy.
There's a fisher puppy who is very good, and if he is killed, I will end the video without any hesitation. Some math is worked out.
$8,000 divided 4 ways is what?
Back on land, Chrissy's remains are examined by Hooper in a great scene as the shark attack is confirmed.
Well, this is not a boat accident. It wasn't any coral reef, and it wasn't Jack the Ripper.
It was a shark.
Next, we see a shark has been caught as the fishermen celebrate. Despite this, Hooper measures the bite radius and Quint is seen cruising by, laughing at the commotion. The two shark experts know something we don't. Like what kind of shark it is.
Tiger shark.
A what?
I love how that guy has one of the goofiest line deliveries in the whole movie. Then the next scene talks like this. Also, did you guys notice that? What the hell is the dude on the right doing? He's just sitting there blowing on Hooper. I never noticed that until this rewatch. Anyway, the mayor's back in the picture and the celebratory Brody is pulled away to hear some grim possibilities. The bite radius doesn't match the one calculated from the remains. Fashion-forward Mayor Vaughn has other concerns.
To perform some kind of a half-assed autopsy on a fish and see that little Kentner boy spill out all over the dock.
Mrs. Kintner shames Brody after learning about Chrissy's death and that the beaches remained open.
You knew there was a shark out there, but still my boy is dead now.
This scene is heartbreaking, but the acting is outstanding. We feel the pain of a mother who has experienced an avoidable tragedy. The mayor tries to console Brody, who knows she was right.
I'm sorry, Martin. She's wrong.
No, she's not.
After all his effort, the council kept the beach open and the body count rose. We exit on a brassy and tonally foreboding score from Williams.
Ugly son of a bitch down before it stinks up the whole island. Harv, you and Carl take...
After dinner, Brody and Sean sit at the table. Sean imitates his stressed out dad in the cutest scene of the film. He also does a pretty rad monster impression, fueled by the fact his 2 front teeth are missing.
Come here. Give us a kiss. Why? Because I need it.
Someone get me that fit too, that boy is dripping. Hooper stops by to get the party started with 2 bottles of wine. Better get my boy Sean back up in there. After a long day of shark inspections, Hooper is famished.
Is anyone eating this?
We hear a story about him as a kid and why he got into studying sharks. The character having history and memories is such good storytelling, while also making us relate to his childlike inspirations. Brody is still dazed, silently proceeding to drink. This tells us the shock of his first shark encounters and how Hooper has been through the ringer. A perfect segue into the news he brings to the chief. a truth they both did not want to be true.
I'm gonna go to the Institute tomorrow and tell them that you still have a shark problem here.
Why do you have to tell them that?
Sorry.
As Brody has a reasonable amount of wine, we hear Hooper is set to leave town on an expedition the next day, with the wanted shark still on the loose. A quick jump in the conversation addressing Ellen's question on why he's afraid of water.
Drowning.
He has another small drink and gets ready to cut open the shark, which Ellen thinks might be against the rules.
I can do anything. I'm the chief of police.
The duo begin the autopsy with a pretty accurate slide from Hooper.
Fish slide.
That nasty milk-like stomach acid probably has one of the worst smells imaginable. They dox the shark's license plate, and with an otherwise empty stomach, know the real predator is still out there.
Yeah, but I'm not drunk enough to go out in the boat.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I can't do that.
Yes, you can.
On Hooper's boat, Brody dips into the bottle of white. I'm glad he's staying hydrated, good for him. Hooper still has the munchies, but knows that sharing is caring. With all this fancy 1970s tech, Brody finds out Hooper pays for most of it himself.
You're kidding.
No.
You rich?
Yeah.
They stumble upon Ben Gardner's boat, and with some beautiful cinematography, we see the silhouette of a shark bite. Hooper makes one of the classic horror movie mistakes deciding to dive down and investigate. He finds a big-ass tooth and Ben Gardner. Sorry for that, cuties, but I had to preserve one of the best jump scares in its entirety. This was added later in the film's production and accomplished by shooting in editor Verna Fields' home pool. To get the look of murky ocean water, they ended up dumping a carton of milk in the pool. So Hooper is pretty much like a particle of Captain Crunch in a big bowl. That's deep. It sounds like a metaphor for life. The next day, with Hooper still in town, the two plead to Mayor Vaughn that something has to be done. But since they don't have the tooth to show for evidence, he remains unsympathetic. His concern is recent vandalism to a billboard, refusing to acknowledge the shark problem. He insults Hooper and leaves as the camera stays with void space in the frame, almost like a pause to process the mayor's stupidity, just like the characters are doing. It slowly pans down, and guess what? This is another fantastic one take. Vaughn is set on having the beaches open for the 4th of July, and next we see the influx of people unaware of his decision. They're gonna make for one happy shark. The arriving crowds are spliced with Ellen, Brody, and Hooper asking for any help they can muster. At the beach, there is a really cool early arcade machine. Also a really uncool 1,000 course meal for Bruce. Bruce is the nickname Spielberg gave the animatronic shark, named after his lawyer. The shark never worked correctly, causing the comparison for both to be a quote pain in the ass. The only way Brody can see for the beaches to open is with roped off zones and as much ocean surveillance they can get. So much attention has been attracted to the island, even the news is here. The reporter is played by Peter Benchley, the author of the book and co-writer for the film. Mayor Vaughn rudely tries to convince this poor family to get in the water, since the entire crowd refuses to go in. Like, dude, if you are so pressed about it, put your money where your mouth is and go in yourself. I bet you he would have a pretty baller swimsuit though. With hands held, we see a great shot, dividing the beachgoers, the ocean, and the family bravely crossing that boundary. The sheep will follow and the waters are filled again. Michael and his friends plan to take out his birthday boat, but get stopped by Brody. He tells Mikey to bring it to the pond instead.
Pond's for old ladies.
I know it's for the old ladies, but just do it for the old man, huh?
Amidst all the fun in the sun, we cut back to an underwater shot. Ah shit, here we go again. Excellent sound design is used when the camera is placed on the waterline. The commotion and sound become muffled when the water raises. To do this, a box was placed around the camera and operators handheld the whole thing at sea level. That's a killer forearm workout. There are three swimmers because of the shark. Wait. Also, that dude just Grand Theft Auto those poor kids in their raft. The team hurries to get everyone out of the water using whistles, a look at the camera, and yet another raft snatcher. Like, come on, guys. These people are brutal, can't have shit in Amity. Then we find out the shark was 2 kids this whole time. Oh wait, no, it was a hoax. Little schmucks. Fun fact, the younger kid on the right just got named Chief of Police of Martha's Vineyard. Hope he doesn't have to deal with any shark attacks. Good luck, dude. On an adjacent outlook, an artist spots the real deal and yells to alert the masses. Another small detail I just noticed, what is she painting? 2 kids sharing a t-shirt? There are so many funny bits in the background of these scenes. We hear the shark is heading to the pond.
Michael's in the pond.
Spotting the kids is a not enthusiast, and the shark. Brody hurries over with the town chasing behind him. Another gorgeous shot reflecting the one earlier, with Brody in the middle protecting the citizens from the horrors of the ocean. The kids and the guy all get knocked in and we see the first real glimpse at the start of the show. As well as a brutal chomped off leg. Brody has maximized this run and parkours over to help. Michael is passed out as he is pulled from the water. A longing stare into the ocean lets us know enough is enough. At the hospital, Mikey's conscious and requests some coffee ice cream. Pretty good choice, but mint chocolate chip is still superior. Vaughn comes stumbling in like an NPC, and Brody hands off Sean so he can rip the mayor a new asshole. He makes Vaughn sign a contract hiring Quint to kill the shark. We learn the mayor's son was also in the water, and finally, he shows a little remorse. Ah, smoking in the hospital. I miss it. Quint's list of demands ushers Hooper and Brody into his shark shack. It's decorated with the bones of previous voyages and even some homebrewed alcohol. Chief loves it and wants to keep it all for himself.
Don't drink that.
Quint busts Hooper's balls, testing if he's a real seaman and not even looking at the knot that was just tied. Brody tries to mediate as he's the only one without his sea legs. Out on the dock, Quint tells some more jokes he's very impressed with.
What are you, some kind of half-ass astronaut?
We get some solid deductions, which is one of my most quoted phrases in the whole film.
You go inside the cage. Cage goes in the water. You go in the water. Sharks in the water.
Ellen sends off Brody looking like the Gorton's fisherman, with foul-mouthed shouts from Quint.
Son of a bitch!
There's a really touching moment as both acknowledge the danger from the task at hand.
What am I going to tell the kids?
Tell them I'm going fishing.
They play such a perfect couple who actually love each other and can provide realistic line deliveries. A push through mounted jaws lands us in the belly of the beast as the Orca, Quint's ship, is cast away. The next half of the movie lets the three leads show off their chops isolated together from land. A colonial pirate theme sets the tone, fading to a sea of red. After chumming for 5 miles, Quint continues the one-upsmanship by chugging a beer, to which Hooper responds by downing his water cup. All that excitement leads to a close call with compressed air.
This is compressed air. You screw around with these tanks and they're gonna blow up.
Let's just stick to the knots, huh?
Not too good, is it, Chief?
Never mind. Suspense is built as Quint's reel slowly starts to unwind. He side-eyes it and realizes he'll have to finish his cracker break later. Everyone's character perfectly fits this moment as Hooper tries to set up tracking technology, Chief is trying to learn the basic seamanship, and Quint tries to lone wolf the problem. Chief figures out the knot, exclaiming,
I got it!
a funny gag since the shark makes his presence known. Quint again recognizes the smarts of the shark as it went under the boat to escape being reeled in. Pole responsibilities are given to Brody, and we get a very real sounding. More insults are directed towards Hooper as the old sea dog thinks he's the only one equipped to handle this sort of thing. In return, we get some of the funniest mockery as a rebuttal. Despite the leathery exterior, Quint watches out for the homies.
Hey, your head's bleeding. First aid there.
Quint descends from the crow's nest and gives commands.
Stop playing with yourself, Hooper!
Brucey feels left out and wants something to do as well. How about, let's come up with some iconic phrases.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Nice. This line was ad-libbed and became arguably the most well-known bit of dialogue from the film. With the scale of the shark revealed, the two sailors spring into action, leaving Brody aimlessly lost. In the middle of this, we get a radio call, and an uncredited cameo from Spielberg, who is transferring a dispatch from Ellen.
This is Amity Point Light Station to work.
Quint very unsuspiciously updates her.
Your husband's all right, Mrs. Brody. He's fishing. He just got a couple of stripers. We'll bring him in for dinner. We won't be long. We haven't seen anything yet. Order out.
Meanwhile, Hooper tries to get Brody to the edge of the boat for a picture of the shark.
Please go to the end of the pulpit. What for? I need to have something in the foreground to give it some scale. Foreground my ass!
He quickly returns and gets to drive the boat.
Hooper!
Hooper runs into the cabin to get a tracker and just barely ties it to the barrel in time for the return of the upbeat score. Despite the resistance, the shark disappears into the depths of the sea. Night approaches and Spielberg flexes his golden hour photography. Then proceeds to blatantly cut off Brody.
Yeah, but we could radio in and get a bigger boat out here.
I'll give him a pass only because the next sequence is so iconic. The boys wind the evening into night by comparing wounds. Competition is stiff, bringing up stories and time for bonding. We see that regardless of Hooper and Quint's constant trying to prove themselves, they each hold a high respect for each other.
Drink to your leg. I'll drink to your leg. Okay, so we drink to our legs.
Since there are 6 legs on this boat, they are starting to feel very good. Jokes are flying but end up hitting a wall of seriousness as Brody points out an unmentioned scar, which Quint initially chalks up as a removed tattoo. Real quick, if you haven't seen this part, just look up Quint's speech and please go watch it. I mean, really watch this whole movie and come back. Because this is the quintessential scene of why this film and its characters are so real and special. I think everyone needs to see this segment in its entirety. The scar was never a tattoo. We learned Quint was on the USS Indianapolis, a real vessel that delivered the atomic bomb. Just after, they were hit by Japanese missiles and sunk. 1,100 men were stranded in the water and banded in groups to fight off the incoming sharks. After days of fighting to survive, rescue came. Quint says that was the most he feared for his life, having to wait his turn for safety. He vows to never wear a life jacket again. In total, 1,100 men went in the water. At the end of 16 men came out.
The sharks took the rest.
June the 29th, 1945. I don't know if this can ever be topped, in my opinion. A chilling, real story about one of the most important events in the last century. Pacing slowed, and we were allowed to hear this tale with all the emotion it deserves. It is so powerful, and the small inflection in Quint's voice when he says 1945 sums it up perfectly.
1945.
This made him who he is. He gets to avenge or just deal with having lived through that by hunting sharks, taking one more out of the water whenever he's successful. His emotions are on his sleeve here, no facade. This is his core. Hooper's staring reaction was real. Dreyfuss was in awe of the story and how moving Shaw's performance was. Writer Howard Sackler initially wrote the speech in an uncredited treatment of the script. Some edits were made, including by Shaw himself. This took 2 days to shoot because on the first, Shaw asked Spielberg if he could drink a little to realistically fit the scene. He agreed, and after some time Shaw got drunk and couldn't go on. The next day, he profusely apologized to Spielberg, came on set, and knocked it out of the park. Also, remember earlier when the date on the bounty said Alex Kintner was killed June 29th? Is that a reference to this speech or just a mistake, since Chrissy was killed July 1st? With the sound of whales reverberating the night sea, the trio lighten the mood singing bar songs. As the rowdiness increases, the barrel resurfaces. An extra percussionist has joined the mix. One by one, they notice the company and stop singing in order of sea experience. The orca starts filling with water and fire.
Dave, put out the pilot.
Immediate action prevents any mayday calls able to be made. With power out,
He ate the light.
Terrific.
Excuse me.
Quint reverts to marksmanship and tries to quickscope the shark. Brody gets the hint, pulling out some heat, then silence as the barrel disappears. Look though, a shooting star. 2 shooting stars? Today is your lucky day. With work through the morning, repairs are in progress. Brucey didn't get the memo and came in after a nice breakfast. They pull in the rope and Quint warns to let go at the sight of a shark.
I see fingers torn out at the knuckles.
Despite this, when the shark appears, he holds on. Brody finally goes to send out a distress signal, to which Quint responds by smashing the radio with a bat. He wants to be the one to kill the shark. It's his vendetta.
That's great! That's just great!
So when he gets the chance, he hip fires and sticks a second barrel to the beast. They catch up and secure the barrel as Quint lands another shot. Unfortunately, they couldn't save the cameraman. With the orca smoking, they round up the rope again. Now planning to bring the shark to shore, Hooper and Brody tie up the cleats. Bruce much prefers the water, so he turns the ship trying to fight it. A friendly tug makes the deck diagonal, and Brody, previously learning from his mistakes, secures the compressed air.
We got a taxidermy man! He gonna have a heart attack when he sees what I brought him!
Hungry again, the shark tries to bite through the ropes. Quint rebuttals by giving a harpoon chin piercing. Along with that, he gets a barrel, free of charge. The crew struggle to untie the cleats, fearing they'll snap off. Seeing the engine flooding, Quint goes to relieve them by grabbing a machete. He channels his inner Jason and the braces pop off. 3 barrels deep, the shark continues to fight. Brody debates pumping out the water or ascending to the high ground. Having watched Kenobi, he makes a wise choice. Quint did not, so maniacally he pushes the broken engine past its limits. He snaps at Hooper and sees only red, losing any reason. The engine gives out and then proceeds to explode. In a tormenting nature, the shark just circles. Quint looks defeated at the havoc he helped cause. He hands out life jackets, but sticks to his earlier vow. The trio stare out, looking as if accepting their demise. When all other methods fail, Quint asks Hooper if his equipment can be of service. All 3 are more even, facing the same monumental problem. The new plan is to poison the shark once he gets close enough.
You got any better suggestions?
I always love this transition into Brody helping assemble the cage. It really shows they are completely out of luck. The 2 shooting stars have already been used. Hooper enters the submerged cage, all 3 nervous beyond belief.
I got no spit.
Under the water, we see the perspective of the incoming shark, mixed with the barrels approaching above. The main theme is so effective alongside the entrapment under the water. Hooper prepares the poison, waiting to get an opening. While holding it outside the cage, he gets Ben Gardner jump-scared from behind. This causes him to drop the spear and get a big bend in his cage. For that scene, stunt double Dick Warlock got to play Hooper. He not only has an awesome name, but he also got to play Michael Myers in Halloween 2 and one of the reoccurring goons in Halloween 3. Quick side note, I love Halloween 3 and it is definitely the underrated gem of that franchise. Those may be fighting words, but it is weird and cool and has awesome sound effects. Hooper lands a couple jabs into the top of the shark, and when stuck, he swims away to safety. In the book, Benchley kills off Hooper, and that was the original plan for the movie. But the two shark experts getting footage for the film, Valerie and Ron Taylor, impressed Spielberg so much with the raw strength of a thrashing shark, Hooper got to live. In their video, the cage was empty, and there now needed to be a reason to have it free. To help with the illusion of scale, miniature versions were used with a real shark. There was even a little person stunt double and a prop dummy. The two surface the empty crate and assume the worst. Bruce gives them no time to grieve and quickly starts to capsize the boat. Quint slides down and attempts fancy footwork to avoid being consumed. He gets bit and stabs at the shark, screaming in pain. Bleeding from the mouth, he is dragged into the sea and dies. Rest in peace, Quint. The poetic fall to his pledged enemy is the only way he can go out, dying just like how he described in his speech. Isolated Brody is trapped in the cabin and feeds the shark an offering to be left alone. Bruce temporarily accepts and Brody arms himself, fleeing to the sinking nest. Using a spear, he follows the other two's footsteps by impaling the head of the shark. On a final joust, Brody makes a stand. With the sinking ship, this is the last run for one of them to claim the ultimate victory. The music swells, shots miss. That's it. A triumphant explosion ends the shark. In the red rain, a cry of victory. The carcass sinks back into the mysterious darkness from where it came. Also, wouldn't it be raining chunks of Quint too? Okay, sorry, I do not want to put that picture in your head. That was one of the most satisfying movie deaths ever. The relief for Brody and the audience is impalpable. In the book, the shark succumbs to the injuries and barrels, bleeding out and falling to the ocean floor. Spielberg knew this would not give the ending he needed. The change originally caused a rift between the director and writer, but after countless screenings ended in standing ovation, they agreed it worked. Hooper makes his way back to the Orca and finds Brody. With a needed embrace, the news about Quint is subtly broken, perfectly fitting the somber but rejoiceful tone.
Quint. No.
On a conclusive score, the duo paddle back to shore on some barrels. What was a marker of doom now is a craft carrying them home.
I used to hate the water.
I can't imagine why.
A fade onto the beach gives us a full circle of where the picture started. Bright music accompanying the credits. The end. What a movie. The characters are perfect and feel like a real example of what could happen in that situation. That groundedness carries through to the witty but emotional dialogue. Everyone has a story and motive, and that lived-in feeling exudes throughout. Critics and audiences felt the same way, leading to one of the longest theater runs ever. The huge achievement skyrocketed Spielberg to the household name he has today. Sequels were later made, and although the second is pretty good, there really was no need. Still, its pop culture status is off the charts. Considering we are coming up on the 50th anniversary and it is still so prevalent is remarkable. Alright, that's pretty much all I got. Hope you enjoyed, maybe learned something, or even laughed. I tried to have as much information while also balancing personality. Again, it's something new I've wanted to try for a while, so let me know what you think. It's one of my passions and easily the most work I've put into a video. I'm excited to cover more movies, so stick around. Stay safe, everybody. Peace.